Calling meeting to order. The date is August 20th, and the time is 7:01. Okay, can someone wants to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Everybody rise, please.
Place our hand over our heart and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Greg, you want to do the roll call, please?
Sure. Commissioner Langley, Commissioner Khan,
Yeah.
Commissioner Sherman,
Present.
Vice Chair Reicher,
Here.
and Chair Henderson is away with excused absence.
Can I get a motion for the approval of the minutes?
I move that we approve the July 16th, 2024 meeting of the Planning and Environmental Commission.
A second.
Okay.
Commissioner Langley,
Yes.
Commissioner Khan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sherman,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Reicher.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Oral communications. Kevin?
So this is a time where the public may address the Planning Commission on items that are not on the agenda, but can speak to the Planning Commission for any other conversation that they would want to have. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes, and anyone who would like to speak would have to fill out a public comments sheet in the back of the City Council chambers. And we have not received any public comment under oral communications.
Okay. Now, for the staff report, public hearing, presentation by applicant, commission, comment, and vote will be 6A, conditional use permit number 3-24, environmental assessment 6-24. A request for a conditional use permit per section 18.32.030.B of the Gardena Municipal Code to allow the sale of beer and wine for on-site consumption in an existing cigar lounge located in the general commercial C3 zone with a housing overlay 5, HO5, and make a determination of public convenience or necessity. So, do we have a staff report?
Yeah, so as you said, Vice Chair, this is a application for a conditional use permit to allow the sale of beer and wine for on-site consumption for a existing business with the cigar lounge known as Legend Cigar. The business is located on 14512 Crenshaw Boulevard. You can see it on the vicinity map up on the TV. It is going to be in the star with the little circle. And this is the zoning map. The zone of this property is going to be, as you stated, C3, which is our general commercial zone, with a housing overlay 5, which does allow for up to 50 dwelling units per acre on this property. But this is just going to be for the commercial use. And then the properties north and south of the subject site are going to be the same zoning with the C3 and HO5 overlay. To the east is going to be single-family residential, the R1 zoning, and west of the property is Crenshaw Boulevard, and adjacent to Crenshaw Boulevard is going to be outside of city jurisdiction with LA County. And this is the existing building, and I've highlighted which one is the project site. And this is the site plan. As you can see, it's a 2-tenant building totaling up to 3,900 square feet. However, this tenant space occupies 1,813 square feet. There is parking in the back, and to access the parking, you have to go to the alleyway. And then the floor plan is shown to you. This is the tenant space, so it does have an entrance on the western side of the property. The applicants are going to store the bar available for sale in the bar area, as well as the alcohol storage room. And then they do have private locker rooms for people to use as well. And so the cigar lounge is a legal non-conforming use in the commercial C3 zone because this business was established in April 2022 prior to the adoption of ordinance number 1871 requiring cigar lounges to obtain a conditional use permit, and that went up to City Council in May 2024. And then for the use for the sale of on or off-site alcohol consumption, it does require a conditional use permit per Gardena Municipal Code section 1832030B. And so what the applicants are trying to apply for is a type 42 for the sale of beer and wine for on-site consumption in a public premise. These are the hours of operation for the business: Monday to Thursday, 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. Fridays, 4 p.m. to 12 a.m. Saturday is 10 a.m. to 12 a.m. And then Sundays are going to be 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. This is just a census tract for the different ABC types, similar to the applied conditional use permit. So there are 2 type 41 licenses for the sale of beer and wine for on-site consumption in an eating establishment. Those are going to be located up top on Rosecrans Avenue, right by Van Ness Avenue. And then there are 2 type 47 licenses for the beer, wine, and spirits for on-site consumption in an eating establishment. That's located by Crenshaw Boulevard and up top at Rosecrans Avenue. The census tract is within the definition of an undue concentration, so we're requesting a public convenience or necessity determination from the Planning Commission due to state law. And then the business, again, is applying for that type 42 license, but the planning staff does not see that this would adversely affect the surrounding land uses and growth of the development of the area. Furthermore, the business does bring a new business type as it is the only cigar lounge in the city. And it would help revitalize the area just because for that area between Rosecrans Avenue and Marine, vacancies are abundant in that area. So this is one of the more active businesses in that census tract. And then for sensitive receptors, as you can see, the project's site is in the star. There is a public library and religious facility across the street on Crenshaw Boulevard. Again, as stated, this is on the LA County side. There is a religious facility up top as well, and then a single-family residential on the eastern side. And then just for reference as well, this is the street view from the project site to the public library and religious facility. To note, Crenshaw Boulevard does separate the project site to the other public library and religious facilities. Crenshaw Boulevard is about 75 feet in width. There is no direct crosswalks from the project site to either the public library or religious facility. And there are at least 5 lanes as well as on-street parking that would divide the two. And then for environmental considerations, the project is categorically exempt from the provisions of the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to the guidelines sections 15301 for existing facilities, 15061B3 for no significant environmental implications, as well as 15300.2 because this project is not subject to the exceptions to the exemptions in CEQA. For public noticing, we did notice the public by Gardena Valley News, as well as mailer letters to property owners and occupants within 300 feet of the project site on August 8th. And 2 public comments regarding the project have been received. Before you is physical copies of those public comments. The first one being from Charlize Tran. They state that there's are current loud noises, talking, and there are some activities outside of the business space. And then they note that people sometimes stay around 2 a.m. And the second comment is pretty much an elaboration of the first public comment. They do note the same qualities as well as more so activities that may disrupt the single-family neighborhood that is east of the subject site. And they also note some portable outdoor heaters, cooking grills, some tents, and then loud behavior as well. And then part of that public comment attached to you is a comment from Lieutenant Mark Thomas, who is the lieutenant of that district. He does note that there was one call for disturbance of loud music and live band, but the property owner, Michael Brown, was cooperative in turning down the music for the residents. And then on the second page of that is the call sheet for that the lieutenant did relay the information to.
Sorry, Kevin, interrupted. Commissioners, I just want to add, we don't know what in relation to the calls for service that were provided by Lieutenant Thompson are in direct relation with the comment that was received, because it was just received today. Just noting that this comment received from the police department was prior to the comment received, the public comment received.
Commission, I do want to mention that, you know, the comments made in the public record, those wouldn't be allowed whether or not they're issued this CUP or not. In fact, code enforcement has been alerted. They will be investigating and speaking with the applicant. They will be given violations and citations if this type of thing does happen. And again, we haven't verified this is a complaint, but just know that whether you issue the CUP or not, this is in violation of our municipal code either way. So we will be speaking with the applicant, our code enforcement, and ensuring that these types of things aren't happening. And we don't know whether they are or not. We haven't fact found yet.
And then to continue with the presentation, with the public comment in mind, staff is recommending the following conditions to be added to the conditions of approval for this conditional use permit. The first one being the hours of operation for the business should be limited to the hours presented at this meeting. To relay that again is going to be Monday to Thursday, 4 p.m. to 10 p.m., Fridays from 4 p.m. to 12 a.m., and Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 12 a.m., as well as Sundays from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. And then all business stores should remain closed during the hours of operations, just so that way noise doesn't escape to be heard from the single-family residential neighborhood. And with that, staff is recommending that you conduct a public hearing, receive testimony from the public, adopt resolution PC number 1524, making the necessary findings and approving conditional use permit 324, subject to the attached conditions of approval and recommended added conditions, make a determination of public convenience or necessity, and direct staff to file a notice of exemption. The applicant is also here if you would like to hear from them, and as well as answer any questions you may have.
Yes. You'd like to step forward, please?
Good evening.
Okay.
I don't have a lot to say. I thank you for the opportunity.
Excuse me, can you give your name and address for the record? please?
Oh, the business address or?
That's fine.
Okay. Michael Brown, 14512 Crenshaw Boulevard, Gardena, California, 90249. I've been a resident. I attended Gardena High School. So starting my business in the city of Gardena meant a lot to me. And, you know, I'm looking forward to serving the community. I think up to this point, it has been a real benefit. For me, it's not just about the smoking the cigars, but the people you meet along the way. And I hope to continue that and going forward.
Anybody have any questions?
I mean, my question is, will it be this first one in the building to use alcohol?
That would be correct. This is the first conditional use permit being applied for this building.
Okay, I have a question. How many cigar lounges do we have in the city?
So this is the first and only cigar lounge that has a business license with the city of Gardena.
Commissioner Chair, I'd like to clarify, this isn't the CUP for the cigar lounge. The cigar lounge is an existing business. You're not being asked to approve that. You're only being asked to approve the beer and wine CUP for the cigar lounge.
I guess the question I would have is, you've heard the complaint that's been filed with us today. So did you put tents in the back and these things that were there?
There's more like a canopy in the back, but yes. You know, I didn't know that there was an issue, but they fold and they come down on a daily, so we rarely use them, usually during the summer when it's hot like now. There's no use for them during the winter. So that's not a problem if that's something I need to deal with.
Okay, because I think that's what we're dealing with is how you are a good neighbor to the people behind you who right over the alley and the back wall right there, right?
Absolutely. I try to be a good neighbor. My intent is to welcome the whole community. When the ABC sent out the notices, a lot of the residents, the guys, came by, and they've come to the lounge since then as customers. So I'm open to whatever it takes, but I don't see this being an issue going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Commission, just so you know, it is in our municipal code, and it's also a specified condition that all operations need to happen within an enclosed building. And so, like I had mentioned before, with or without this CUP, we will be, monitoring the business for this type of activity because we wouldn't allow it to be happening outside of the business. And had we heard before the public record comment came in, we would have already went out and investigated. But this is the first we're hearing of it. But just to let the applicant know, we will be looking into it and monitoring. So, but yeah, all business activities need to happen within your closed establishment. There is a process if you want to request on a very limited occasion a temporary event permit.
Yes.
Process, and that's a separate permit that's given for a specific event. In that case, is we would review allowing you to put tents in your parking lot for 1 day, but still abide by certain rules. So
Gotcha. Okay.
Anybody else? Anybody want to make a motion?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Again, I make a motion to adopt resolution number PC 1524, making the necessary finding in approving conditional use permit 3-24, subject to the attached condition of approval and recommended added condition, make a determination of public convenience or necessity, and direct staff to file a notice of exemption.
Second the motion. The motion.
Roll call, please. Okay. Commissioner Khan,
Yes.
Vice Chair Wright Sure,
Yes.
Commissioner Sherman,
Yes.
and Commissioner Langley.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have a staff report, which is 6B, Zone Text Amendment number 5-24, Ordinance number 1875. Recommendation to the City Council on adoption of ordinance number 1875, amending the Gardena Municipal Code, Chapter 18.66 and Section 18.36.020, relating to allowing non-storefront retail municipal cannabis delivery services businesses in the M1 and M2 zoning districts.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Vice Chair Wright Sure and Planning Commissioners. I'll be presenting staff's presentation on the report that was prepared under this item. Okay, so to begin, just wanted to provide a very brief overview of some of the cannabis legislation that's been passed in the California's history, more just prevalent to tonight's item. And so back in 1996, California voters approved Proposition number 215, which legalized the use of medical cannabis in California. Later, in 2016, voters approved Proposition 24 to allow for the adult use of non-medical use of cannabis. And later, in 2017, Senate Bill 94 passed, which created a few things. One created a single regulatory scheme for both medical and non-medical cannabis. But it is noted that under this regulation, it's still allowed for the local jurisdictions to either have control over these types of uses, whether they're allowed or not in the cities that they govern. So with that, back in 2017, the city adopted an ordinance establishing Chapter 18.66, establishing the prohibition of all cannabis, commercial cannabis uses in the city. However, in September of 2022, Governor Newsom signed Senate Bill number 1186 into law. This bill prohibited cities from adopting or enforcing regulations on or after January 1st of 2024 that would directly or indirectly prohibit the retail sales of by delivery of medical cannabis in the city. However, the act again would allow cities to adopt and enforce reasonable regulations and locations of these medical cannabis delivery services, also referred to as non-storefront retailers. So what is non-storefront retailers? So it means the retail sales of cannabis goods to customers through delivery. So it's a location. It's not open to the public, but more or less like a warehouse type structure. But it's for the retail sales of medical cannabis products for delivery only to patients or their guardian or their patients or nursing for medical cannabis use. So what is Senate Bill number 1186? Cities, again, may continue to enforce the prohibition of all other types of cannabis uses. So this includes the cultivation and manufacturing and testing of medical cannabis. So those types of uses would still be prohibited in the city, or could be. And so the legislation also doesn't impact the city's control on non-medical cannabis uses. So in order to comply with SB 1186, the city must do a few things. Again, still continue to prohibit all other type of medical cannabis uses and all non-medical cannabis uses. But it does need to do two things in order to comply with this new state law. It shall amend its code to lift the ban on establishing a physical location, again, to allow for the non-storefront retailer establishments to be located here in the city. But again, under the new state law, it does allow for the city to provide certain regulations for these types of uses. So if the city would like to regulate these types of uses, we need to implement that through zoning regulations. And so on top of that, under the other types of regulations on non-storefront retailers under SB 1186 that the cities are granted relate to security and public health, licensing requirements, imposing or collecting applicable state or local taxes on the retail sales of the medical cannabis products, and regulate consistency with the requirements on restrictions imposed on cannabis business by state law or regulations issued by the California Department of Cannabis Control. However, what's being brought before you today, is under Ordinance Number 1875, and what Ordinance 1875 sets out to do is two things: is to do amendments to the Title 18, including zoning requirements, so where these types of uses would be allowed and what the regulations under that would be. But it also, Ordinance 1875 also establishes a new chapter, and this is the licensing and permitting process that would be established for these types of uses. Now those amendments would be to Title V. It's included under this ordinance, but it's not under the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. So what's only up for the Planning Commission's consideration tonight is the amendments to the zoning code to Title 18. And obviously, it would be for recommendation to the City Council. So after tonight's meeting, the ordinance will be presented to the council in its entirety. Okay. So at this time, I'm going to explain what the amendments to the zoning code under this ordinance would establish. The first would be to the chapter referred to before, 1866, which was for prohibition of cannabis and personal cultivation within the city. So under this ordinance, it would clarify that the ban on these commercial activity uses do not apply to the delivery of medical cannabis by a non-storefront retailer. So therefore lifting the ban on that requirement and to come into compliance with SB 1186. It would also establish the city's current prohibition on all other aspects of, again, medical and commercial cannabis are still unaffected. Under this chapter, there will be introductions of new definitions. For example, non-storefront retailer, again, to provide that clarity of what is being allowed and what is still continuing to not be allowed within the city. These second amendments to the zoning title would include amendments to Chapter 18.36. Now, this is the regulations for the city's industrial zoning districts. That's for the M1 zone. It's noted that these amendments to 1836 to the M1 zone would also affect regulations under the M2 zone because they're one and the same in accordance with the city's municipal code. So the ordinance would allow for non-storefront retailers in both of these zones permitted by right, provided that one, they get the permits and licensing that would be established, on the other part of this ordinance under Title V. but also uh, uh, under the zoning title would establish certain distance requirements from certain sensitive receptors as listed here. So this includes public and private schools, daycare centers, as defined by the Health and Safety Code, churches, public libraries, public parks, libraries, and youth centers. So the ordinance would establish, again, that non-storefront retailers would be allowed to establish in the M1 or the M2 zone, and sorry, I did not note before, but provided that they're at least 600 feet away from one of these sensitive receptors. So as part of staff's analysis is to determine that these amendments are consistent with the city's general plan. And again, the industrial land use, as defined under the general land use plan, does allow for a variety of clean and environmentally friendly industries. And so the city's, as part of the ordinance, is finding that it is consistent with those regulations under the general plan. Lastly, as all the requests for a zoning amendment, it's found that this type of changes to the zoning title would not be subject to the guideline or to the provisions of CEQA, provided that they will not have any possibility of creating a significant effect. The public hearing was noticed again for tonight's meeting. To date, there has been no public comments. So again, as mentioned, this is a public hearing. What's being recommended to the Planning Commission is to conduct a public hearing, receive testimony from the public, and adopt resolution number 16-24, making a recommendation to the City Council on adoption of ordinance number 1875. So that's at this time, the end staff's presentation. If there's any comments from or questions from the Planning Commission, staff is available.
Any questions? Well, I kind of have one. For people to order their marijuana, are they doing this via website? And how do they know that this is taking effect? Is there any sort of advertising, or they will just have to know because they have a card?
The way it gets advertised would be regulated by the state regulations. I assume the businesses could put something out there to let people know that the business now existed for medical delivery. In all honesty, we don't expect to see a lot of this in the city. There are neighboring cities that allow, okay, I give up, that allow the delivery of both medical and non-medical cannabis, and it's a lot to get a state license to only be allowed to do one type of delivery in the city. Nevertheless, it is a requirement of state law that we allow, that we have the provisions that allow it.
Anyone else?
Just a question in general. Does it require a prescription to be able to get the medical marijuana?
I think medical marijuana patients get an identification card from a doctor that says that they are a patient who's entitled to to have medical marijuana, and also licensed caregivers. Like if you were really sick with cancer and something that you could have a caregiver who could also receive the medical marijuana.
Okay.
And although there's no public, if we could formally simply open and close the hearing just for the record.
Do we have any comments? Want to open up for the public? I guess we don't have any, so we can close it.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm wondering how the city gonna control if, I mean, how the city gonna control that the company do it the right way they're supposed to do?
Oh, okay. So first off, again, as Amanda indicated, Planning Commission's jurisdiction is to the zoning and where it can be located. But just in general, these businesses will be required to get a permit from the police department, and they are still required to have state license permits as well before they can operate. So there's actually a double check on them because it's not just the state licensing scheme. We're putting on our own permitting requirements. That's correct. These businesses are non-storefront retailers, which means they can sell, but only by way of delivery to the public. They cannot, no one can walk into the premises and buy. It's not the retail type cannabis thing that the one I'm familiar with is like because my daughter lives in San Pedro, when you go up Western Avenue, I think there's one just south of PCH. And that's a different jurisdiction than us.
Yeah.
I was in the city of LA where
No,
they
Hawthorne.
had. I think
City of Hawthorne.
I think they have one that was off of, was it Redondo Beach Boulevard near Vermont?
I'm not sure.
Freeway, right?
But again,
By the freeway.
that's our point, that City of LA allows the storefront retail for anybody and the public as well, and the delivery services all over. So why are you going to get a state license to come in here to only be able to sell to people with the medical cards?
Right.
I would believe that fewer people actually get the cards now that it's free, now that it's available regardless to anybody over 21.
Any more questions?
Just a comment, Amanda, when you were presenting, you talked about the fact that the city has to oversee taxation at that point.
No.
No, these are the
Imposing or collecting appropriate state and local taxes.
these are the regulations that the city can, under SB 1186, can impose. But
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's under the state regulation that we're sort of adopting underneath that thing that we can impose. When would that be imposed?
It would be our business license, retail.
It would be under
tax.
the business license, okay.
Any more questions? Okay, so anybody want to make a motion?
Motion to adopt resolution number PC 1624, recommending that the city council adopt ordinance number 1875.
Second.
Okay, roll call. Okay. Commissioner Khan,
Yes.
Vice Chair Wright-Sher,
Yes.
Commissioner Langley,
No,
and Commissioner Sherman.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-1.
Okay, now we have the Community Development Director's Report.
Yes, good evening, Chair, Commission. We do have a couple of events coming up, two of our biggest events, actually, that happen throughout the year. The first is the Jazz Festival and that's Sunday, August 25th, over at Rowley Park, like it always is. And just a reminder, planning commissioners can receive 2 general admission tickets or 1 seat in the reserved area. So make sure you let Kevin or Georgina know if you're interested, and they can set that up for you. And then second is our other big event, which is the Food, Wine, and Brew, Saturday, September 28th, which is always here right in front of City Hall. And that's also a big event. So again, on this one, planning commissioners can receive 2 general admission tickets. I guess there's no reserved area there, so. But anyhow, those are the 2 big events that are happening here coming up, and I hope to see you guys there.
Next, we have the Planning and Environmental Quality Commissioners' reports.
Isn't there also Keep Gardena Beautiful sometime in September? Yes, no?
Yes, I believe, yeah, that it's mid-September. We'll get the exact date and send the commission the information. But you're correct. It's usually in September.
Second thing is, I was doing some historical research for 110th anniversary of a location, which is now on 158th Street, but used to be on what is now called Gardena Boulevard. But have you ever noticed that Gardena Boulevard is full of palm trees? If you look, it's solid palm trees on Gardena Boulevard. And historically, Gardena Boulevard was Palm Avenue. Looking back at in 1919, when the church was located at what is now Dalton and Gardena Boulevard, it was then Palm Avenue and another name. It wasn't Dalton. And yep, it was sort of interesting. All of a sudden I go, palm, now I know why all those palm trees are on Gardena Boulevard and on Gardena Boulevard. So next time you see him, you go, oh, that's Palm Street.
I have no report.
I have no report.
I really don't have a report, but I have a question concerning a neighbor of mine that's on Mariposa. He has foul odors coming from his property. And I told him already, you're not going to get the city to come in and check your soil. But who will he go to within the city to check the history of his property to see if there was a factory or whatever there before the house was put on the property? Who would he go to for that?
Well, I guess, first of all, if it's a complaint of a foul odor, we'll have code initially go out there and just see, is it actually coming from his place or something else, or there's something in the sewer or something. But if you just want to know history on your particular lot you own, we do have building records and such in the community development department that he can do a PRA request for, or just come to the counter. If he wants to know some historical history of ownership, you go to the LA County Recorder's Office. You can go get past deeds and whatnot that were issued to that particular parcel. But if he just has a foul odor complaint, I'll let code enforcement know.
Okay, so he can call somebody at the city or come to city
Yeah,
hall?
why don't you give us the address to Kevin, and then we'll hand it off to code.
Okay, I'll give you the address the next time I walk my dog. He's been he hasn't lived in the house for several months now, him and his wife, and I checked the backyard with him. I went there, and there is a slight odor, but who knows what it is? And so I'll get the address and tell you guys.
I'll send animal control with code
Yeah.
enforcement.
Yeah, he's checked for dead animals under the house and hasn't found any, but yeah, that's what I also said that to him, but well, he lives there, but he can't live in the house, him and his wife. That's this is because of the smell. So, and I went in the backyard to take a look, and I did smell something, and I noticed that there's something eating underneath the his pavement, because there used to be a pond there at one point, and they put concrete over it, but underneath you can see a cavity that's been forming over the years. So, well, he's had professionals come over, but he hasn't had a soil inspection. And so just, every now and then when I'm walking my dog, he comes out and he, right. These are the things that happen when I walk my dog. And I told him, next time I'm going to point to you, Steve.
Next time you don't have to wait for a meeting to do this. Just
Right.
just email us or have him email us.
Okay,
We don't have to wait for a planning. This is zoning, right? But
Right.
it's just a regular.
okay. So I'll get the address and I'll email you that. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so I have no report. Okay.
I know this is also the environmental commission, but
Right.
we can deal with
Right.
odors separately. Okay.
Right. Okay. And now, Ms. 7:50, and we can adjourn. I second that emotion.